Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's first Thursday travel Tulare County show with the Sequoia Tourism Council. So Tulare County is in Central California in the San Joaquin Valley, and it's got all kinds of cool agricultural communities with historic downtowns, just a beautiful destination to visit. But it's also home to Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks, the giant Sequoia National Forest, and the Sequoia National Forest. And so check out the website, discoverthesequoias.com, the best place to go to plan your adventure. And today our show is going right to the parks. We're very excited. We've got Sintia Kawasaki-Yee joining us, and normally she's on the phone, so finally we get to actually see her in her park uniform. She is a public affairs officer for Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Parks, and their website is nps.gov/SEKI. So welcome, Sintia. How are you?
Great. It's nice to see your faces.
You too. You too. We just want a uniform like yours. I don't normally like uniforms, but park ranger uniforms, I don't know. I think we all want one. It's the rock star look, you know?
It's easier when you're in your office and,
Yeah,
it's out in the park sometimes in the dress uniform.
yeah. So isn't the Sequoia Park on the logo of NPS, like the Park
Yes,
Service?
there is.
Yeah, it's a tree.
Yeah, right there.
And the bison. Yeah. It's because your parks are one of the first. Yellowstone is what, 150? And then and then Kings Canyon's got to be right there in Sequoia, right?
Yes, we are up there. So Sequoia was the second national park established. And so we've been here for a long time, and we hope people are able to come out and visit us.
Yeah. I mean, last year was really rough. I know we got to go to the park, and it was spring in April last year. Absolutely beautiful. The redbud was in bloom, and it was a gorgeous, gorgeous time. But then right after that, I definitely all the fires happened. So I do want to touch on that so people know the parks are open now, right? I know it depends on the roads, right? Because I know everyone's going to hear this first Thursday in April, but I know some of the roads might be closed because of snow. So it's always good to go to the website, right? For number one.
Mm-hmm. And you never know. I mean, we've had snowstorms come through end of May, and it's very unexpected. Actually, today, the day we're recording in end of March, we got a lot of snow today. So we had to close the road between the parks, which had opened a couple weeks ago. So but we have, information on our website, and we have a number of people can call on the morning that they're driving up, and it'll tell them exactly what's open and closed. I think hopefully by April, we'll be open and ready for visitors.
Awesome. And so when you talk about, the park, well, because Sequoia, I always say Seki, I've got so used to your website, it's SEKI, everybody. But Sequoia and Kings Canyon, you've got like Sequoia National Forest in the middle, and then, giant Sequoia National Monuments. This is like 4 major hubs all together protecting these giant trees. But it is very easy just to go on the General's Highway to go from Kings Canyon into the forest, into the park, and see like the General Grant, which is, one of the most iconic trees, and then the General Sherman, and go into the giant forest. So for those who are worried that they have to go backpacking, you can go on a scenic drive and keep it easy.
Oh, definitely. And there's so many, a lot of these features are right off the highway. So it's, within a few hours, you can drive through the parks and only make a couple stops if you really wanted to, but you get so much. You do get the Forest Service. There's a little bit of everything along the way to experience nature, but maybe from the comfort of your own car, or maybe you stay in one of the lodges, or you camp, in one of the campgrounds, but you don't need to go into wilderness. We do have a very extensive wilderness area, but we're able to cater to a lot of different visitors. But if you want to just drive in and come for the day, or come for a couple of days and only do the easy paved trails, and you still get to see the most iconic trees that we have in both parks, the General Grant tree and the General Sherman tree.
And you have to do it because pictures are good, but it's not the same.
They don't do the trees justice. There's nothing like standing next to one, or underneath one, or touching one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so talk about touching the trees. How many people on average does it take to hug a tree, a giant? I mean, because these are the largest trees, right, on Earth by volume.
Yeah, I think it took, I'm pretty sure it took over a dozen high school students to wrap around the General Sherman tree at one point. So these are pretty big trees by volume. They're not the tallest, but they're very, very big.
So the coastal redwoods are pretty tall, aren't they the tallest? And we were just there.
They're the tallest.
I know,
Just
we
a
were
few
like,
hours away.
yeah, you see, that's the whole thing. You can do the whole, like, if you want to really trip out, you can go through Joshua Tree National Park and get the Joshua trees, right? Which are not trees,
Mhm.
but they are like crazy cool. And then you can go up through the sequoias and then into the redwoods. And it's, we were just in the redwoods and we were hugging those trees, going, "We just saw your cousins," and they're all beautiful. I mean, it's just completely a different thing. So it's kind of that would make a nice road trip to do. I think you get to see
Definitely.
a
There's
lot,
so
the
much to see
ocean
in California. We're very lucky here.
and pinnacles. I always tell people that you're not far from Pinnacles National Park, Yosemite. I mean, Death Valley. There's like this huge
Yeah.
route you could do if you're road tripping it.
Yeah, Pinnacles is one of our hidden gems. Not a lot of people know about that park. Yeah, just a couple hours from here.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things to put on your list. And is that, because you guys are pretty close. I was reading that you get the California condors in your park too.
Yeah, we had a really cool sighting, during, I think it was right before we reopened, that first year of COVID, we were closed for a few weeks. And so right before we opened, we had just happened to have someone drive up into Giant Forest near Moore Rock, and they were able to photograph these condors just hanging out at the top of Moore Rock. And it was such a special sighting, and
Oh,
very unexpected. So yeah.
oh,
Exciting.
It was one of those
okay.
wildlife sightings during COVID times when there were no visitors in the park, and yeah, it was great.
That's
Wow, that's
lucky.
cool.
It's lucky. They are special. I mean, the California condors, I know it was like a whole zoo program where they're rehabilitating and then also breeding and then releasing them. And you're not that far. And if for a condor, it's probably 5 seconds flight from Pinnacles to you. It's really, really close. But so the parks, spring, summer is a magical time. As Nancy, remember we went hiking to the waterfalls. I think it was Marble Falls. Am I getting it right? It was
We have
y-
Marble Falls.
yeah, is it getting to that time frame yet? Do you think, or a little
It's
bit
about to.
later?
Yeah, I mean, we have had some pretty warm weather, and I think by March, I'm sure it'll warm up some more. We got some snow today, but as soon as that snow starts to melt, it starts coming down the mountain and rushing down. So it's a beautiful sight. It's a danger. Can be pretty dangerous if you're standing too close to the river. We've had a lot of incidents where people slip into the river accidentally. The rocks near the river's
Er,
edge are really slippery, but it's beautiful. It's such a beautiful time of year to come in the early spring, to go down into Kings Canyon, down to Cedar Grove and see the waterfalls down there and drive alongside the river. It's
it's
one of my
beautiful.
favorite times of year to be in the parks.
So you have two rivers, right? You've got Kings and Kern River. And I was reading, I didn't even get this. I mean, how many times have we been to the park and done shows with you and park rangers over the years? I didn't know they were wild and scenic actual rivers, these wild and
Rivers.
scenic
Mhm.
ones. That's super lucky to have that. And so in the national park, do you get in the water in the national park at all? Or I know I put my
You're
feet in
able
the water
to
and it was cold. It was super cold. Mm-mm.
in the spring and early summer, it's very, very cold water. It's snow melt water, and the currents are really strong. So we don't recommend anyone get near the water early in the summer and the spring. But once you get to fall, later in the summer and the fall, once the water start to calm down and they warm up a little bit, I think they're still pretty cold, but people, get so hot, especially down at the lower elevations in the foothills of the parks over in Cedar Grove, that people, love to get into the water and enjoy it, but definitely not recommended early in the spring or summer. It's
No,
pretty dangerous, actually. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that was cold. I mean, it was like a hot day when we went up hiking there and we got to this one area where you could just dangle your feet in and I'm like, "Oh, that looks so
Mhm.
good." And then I'm like, "No, do not do this.
Cool.
Do not
Yeah.
do this." Oh man. So a lot of opportunity for hiking. Like you were talking about easy trails that are paved. So like, the Big Trees Trail is probably one of the most popular one for people.
Mhm.
Then that's even accessible. So if you're pushing a child in a stroller or someone in a wheelchair. This is pretty accessible for people.
We take a lot of pride in on our accessibility here in the parks. We have quite a few accessible trails. We have an accessibility guide that's available in visitor centers. It's also available on our website. And it really just covers all of the accessible facilities and trails and things to do when you're in the parks. It really, lines it out for people to make it a more enjoyable experience. And so we have, we provide headsets. Crystal Cave Parks Conservancy does a really good job with having headsets and iPads available for the Crystal Cave tours. Unfortunately, those are going to be closed this year, but in the future, when those are open with ranger programs, we also have headsets that people can wear. And so, yeah, wherever we can make things more accessible, that's been something we've been working really hard the last few years.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about, I know Parks Week comes up in April 16th through the 24th. It also encompasses Earth Day is in there on April 22nd. But National Park Week, doesn't it kick off with a fee-free day?
Yes, I love sharing our fee-free days because it's such a great opportunity, especially if you're local or have a national park that's local to you, wherever you are. Visiting for free. I mean, the entrance fee is, $30 can be pretty steep for some families. And so being able to come up for free is a great opportunity. So April 16th is the first day of National Park Week, and that's a fee-free day. And then we also have the one after that is in August 4th. And so we have a couple of days in spring, summer where people can come to the parks for free and find their park.
Okay, and then what about for kids, junior ranger programs? We like to do them. How many adults do them, do you think?
I think we get a good assortment of ages. People, it's really fun to get the book and then get the badge at the end. And so we really encourage, especially the kids, to get, I think it makes it a little bit more interesting as they're visiting, and it gives them things to look for as they're driving through the parks. And so hopefully it becomes a more engaging experience for them. And so, yeah, we have Junior Ranger Day. We're having an event on April 23rd in the foothills of Sequoia National Park. And so we usually set up in the picnic area across the street from the visitor center. We have booths representing the different programs in the parks and some of our partners. And it's a really fun day. It's a really great way to start your day. So if you come at the beginning of your visit and stop by the event and then drive up the hill from there, it makes for a really fun day.
I like it for families to get out there and even go camping whenever they can,
Yeah, definitely. And most of our campgrounds will be open this year. Everything's on recreation.gov. And so that's the best way to book a reservation. Reservations can be made up to a month in advance. So reservations open, those 30 days in advance, and people can come. And if you happen to come and you're here and you didn't make a reservation, we still recommend we have Wi-Fi at some of our visitor centers or before you come into the park. It doesn't hurt to just check one last time before you head into the park to see if someone had, canceled their reservation or there's a last minute opening that you can take up, because we are going to be taking day of reservations this year. Online on recreation.gov if they happen to be open.
And speaking about reservations, don't you have to have a permit if you want to go backpacking in the wilderness? Do you kind of have to look at that in advance, not just show up in the park and say, okay, I'm going off in a Wonderland adventure for a couple days?
Definitely. Yeah, we do go into our quota season in the summer for wilderness trips. So we've tried to consolidate everything into recreation.gov. And so if you want to pay for your park entrance in advance to speed up your wait time in line, if you want to book a campsite, if you want to book a wilderness trip, everything is on recreation.gov. So we've tried to make it more streamlined than in previous years.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool that you can do that online. Yeah. Some of the state parks we've noticed as we're traveling across, I think it was Florida, we're like, oh, you can buy it right online. And for us, it's a business expense. So we like that we can, the IRS is getting a big pile of park receipts from Nancy and I this year. It's one of our biggest fees. It's like, here, parks. But it's really good when you can buy, also just do it right there. everybody should get their annual pass if they can. I think it's one of the
Absolutely.
best gifts you can do. And you think about Earth Day and National Park Week, it's a good time to go buy a pass. And I like to do it in person in the store if you can, because in the park itself, doesn't the money go right back into the park where you purchase it too? And you get the little card,
Yes.
which is cool.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, no, definitely recommend getting it at, you can get it at the entrance stations and when you're driving in. And so if you're planning on doing a few different trips, just kind of add up the cost of those fees per site and see if it's a better deal to just get an annual pass.
Mm.
And you can just always get it at your first park and then have it for the rest of the year.
It'd make a great gift, especially for Earth Day and days like that. That'd be super.
Hmm.
I like it. And what about spring, summer, we're talking about, all these different, attractions. You've got the waterfalls, there's definitely the hikes. What about Crystal Cave? Am I reading that is closed this year for a while until all the renovations or rehab is done after the fires?
Yeah, that area sustained quite a bit of fire damage from the KNP complex fire. And so that's going to be closed this year. We're hoping to get that trail work underway and have it ready to open on time for next year in 2023. But we'll just have to see how things go this year. There's a lot of work. That's going to be a different experience this year as people are coming up through the parks and, seeing some of these burn areas because they did, right along the highway, a lot of the areas burned. And so you'll see fire damage, wherever you are in the parks this year. Isn't really affecting things as far as opening goes. Most facilities and trails and things will be open, but once you get up, but there will be some trails where you will see signs that say warning, fire area, where the trail is open, but we're just warning you there may be some fire damage along the trail, or some of the trails that need to stay closed for a little bit because the fire damage was so intense. There's a couple trails out in Giant Forest near Moore Rock, Crescent Meadow, where the fire came up the hill. So just something to keep in mind as you're coming out, but most of the trails, most of the facilities, things will be open for the summer.
And when the fire was happening, it was interesting because we all had to learn like a little bit more about the role of fire and sequoias, and then also just how much the Park Service and partners have done over the years to protect these giant trees. I mean, it looked like they were look big burritos, the way that you guys wrapped them up. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Because I think it's something for us to all learn and understand how much the Park Service does in protection of fire. And also, this is an ongoing thing for you up there, really.
Yeah, so up until recently, we didn't really attribute giant sequoia mortality to fires. Fires were thought to be very beneficial for the health of sequoias, and even the baby sequoias need fire. The cones need fire to open up and create little seedlings. But due to the intensity of the fires the last few years, that's what's really killing our giant sequoias. And so we've lost, between 15 to I think it was 19% of all giant sequoias in the world just in the last two fires, with the biggest impact coming from the Castle Fire in 2020. And so that has been a big wake-up call for us, and looking to see what can we do and how do we expedite more fire management in the parks, because prescribed fires and fire is necessary, and we do need and there are just other tools that we need to start implementing as quickly as we can to protect the rest of the remaining the 82% of the remaining is that right? Is my math right? Yeah, 82%.
This is not a math test. Don't go there with us. We're not going to be any help.
We're just trying to do as much as we can and really looking at the effects of the last two fires and what can we do differently. And so the fire structure wrap that was used on a few of our most iconic sequoias, like the General Sherman tree, the Four Guardsmen, some of these trees that you can't miss on your drive up to Giant Forest. It did prove successful. We were able to, protect the bases of those trees, and we were really trying to cover up the fire scars that were already existing on those trees to not, allow for flames to go into the tree and burn from the inside.
Oh.
And so So that's the picture, the picture of the General Sherman tree was one of our most popular photos from this last year's fire. And it was just only one of the many tools that we were using during the fire to try to protect and do what we could. Thankfully, Giant Forest has a really great history of prescribed fire. And so that's really what ended up stopping the fire from damaging any more of the area in Giant Forest, was the history of prescribed fire and getting that treatment over the last, few decades. But the structure wrap did also help.
I wonder if you're going to have different wildflowers this year, but I also know it burned really fast and really hot, so it may really even change the ecosystem a bit. But we've been through a lot of wildfires, Nancy and I, and in natural areas and in California, and where we thought nothing would come back, it did. Things that you didn't see for years popped up, and some plants just came back, and it was just a really different kind of experience. So I'm wondering if that's going to be kind of an interesting thing this year during spring and summer, as flowers normally start to bloom and vegetation starts to green up, if we're going to see different plants.
I think we will, and I think we are already starting to see a little bit of that. Thankfully, we had what's called a mosaic burn effect. So there were areas that definitely did have a higher intensity burn go through them, but other areas with lighter to medium intensity fire where it will actually be beneficial for the ecosystem and the plants in that area. And there are some plants that do really well with recovering from fire. And so I think we'll start to see a little bit of those effects here in the spring, and hopefully it'll be a really great wildflower season.
Your wildflower season goes on forever. It really
It's extended
does.
due to the elevation gain. You start early in the foothills, but then you're able to, then experience the dogwoods, more towards May, heading up into Giant Forest. And it's as the snow starts to melt and things start to warm up at higher elevations, we just are able to extend it a little bit longer here.
What about birds and wildlife? Because I know a lot of people, travel just for that, and especially birders will come with their list. I couldn't believe we saw hummingbirds in the middle of the forest, and the woodpeckers, and it just seems so alive in there. What are some of the highlights, do you think, for visitors coming for birds and wildlife? Bears.
Bears. It's our number one request is what time, do the bears come out, or what time can we see the bears?
They come out just for, picnic time.
Yep. We have a bear program that, and
Yeah.
at sunset. I tell people to come, as early in the morning as they can. Not only will you skip the lines at the entrance station, but you drive up. It's a pretty calm, way to get up the hill to Giant Forest, to Grant Grove. It's quieter. It doesn't really start to get busy until after 10 or 11 o'clock. And so you have really a really good couple hours in the morning to go out to Crescent Meadow, go to these meadows, go to these areas. You have a better chance for wildlife sightings. It's really quiet. There's plenty of parking. You get to go to these main attraction sites and just have these areas mostly to yourself, because not very many, it's quite a drive to get up there from, if you're staying in a hotel or lodge down below. And so if you're an early morning riser, or if you are able to stay later in the day and do sunset up in the parks, those are the two best times of day where it's less busy, it's quiet, and better wildlife sighting all around.
Also in the midweek, to go in midweek too, to avoid crowds, is another.
Definitely.
We've been very lucky. We've seen bear, we've seen deer, all kinds of birds. But we'd stay down the hill, and go up, and we've watched the sunrise, just going, wow, this is really cool, because it changes because you're going up the mountain. The lighting changes. We've seen bears play, babies in Crescent Meadow.
Little baby cubs are so adorable.
Yeah.
It's
seeing them climb around the logs,
but don't feed them. No playing with the bears. They're just
you
cute.
stay far away from our wildlife.
Yeah.
I think, we got a complaint one year that there was a bear on a trail, and that, the bear seemed to be lost and, wasn't affecting their experience. And, well, you're in the bear's home.
Yeah.
This is the bear's home.
What's a bear doing in the forest?
Why is there a bear on trail?
That's so funny. That is
funny.
What? That's one of our favorite experiences there in
Mm.
Crescent Meadow. There's always this couple babies out there, baby deer, and it's like a baby land. That's like the nursery of the park. You know?
Mhm.
So
It's a
what
good
about,
reminder too. People wonder, can they bring their pets or their dogs with them? And, we have so much wildlife in these parks. One of the main reasons why we don't allow dogs on trail or pets on trails is you just never know. You are able, if you want to bring your dog, they'll have to stay in your vehicle or within a parking lot. And it's really
not
not a
good.
great experience for your pets. So
Mm.
it's not if you're coming to camp and you're only staying in, kind of these, more in these busier areas at your campsite and in the parking lots, and you don't plan on going on many walks and you just want to hang out there with your pets, that's fine. But always keeping them on leash, always picking up after them. But you just, wildlife and pets are not a good combo.
And it
Yeah.
does get hot up there, believe it or not. It's one of those
Mhm.
places when you hike, you want to wear your jacket because it's, even if it's summer, it'll be cool in the morning and then all of a sudden it'll be,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, really hot. And if you leave your dog in the car, I mean, that's a no-no.
That's a
You know what I
no-no.
mean? You don't want to close your window. It can get hot there. I mean, we've made the mistake every single time because we end up on the trails looking for wildlife and we still have not done Morrow Rock. And I don't know if my legs want to do Morrow Rock, but I know that it's one of those
You
things
can do it.
I must do it, so we've always left it till the end of, it's like, you're done, you've been hiking all day, now let's go do Morrow Rock, and we're like, it's not
No.
happening.
That's a
So,
good start of the day type of hike. It's maybe do sunrise from the top of Moore Rock. That would be really special,
mm,
or sunset. But yeah, maybe not after a really long day of hiking and walking around the parks.
yeah, so at Morrow Rock, how isn't it like 200 or 300 stairs or 600 or something? My
I don't
legs
know
don't
the
want
exact,
to.
it's definitely a couple hundred steps, but there's little pullouts along the way with some park, there's reading material along the trail, so you can pull out and be really interested in reading and take your time reading and catch a breath and then keep going a little bit higher and yeah, just pull over and let people go around you. You just take it at your own pace. I think that's what a lot of our trails and areas are, is just make it your
Mm.
own experience. Don't rush through anything and take your time.
When you do get to the top of Morrow Rock, is it true you can see Mount Whitney? Or is
I
that more
have
from
not seen
Kings
Mount Whitney
Canyon?
there.
Yeah.
I've only been up there once myself.
Ah,
Uh-oh.
and how much reading did you
Came to
do?
the park. I may have to join you, Lisa.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah, because I heard that, because you
Yeah.
really do have the views, depending on the day. I mean, and so, I mean, the deepest canyons, really tall granite rock. I mean, it's just, I think Kings Canyon, we just touch on that too, because Zumwalt Meadow to me is probably one of the neatest high. It's not, it gets a little bit, I think we have to climb over a few rocks here and there, as I recall, but it is one of those hikes that for a challenge, like a little bit of a challenge for a family, will give you that little bit of a bite of a challenge, but not kill you, you know.
In a short distance. Yeah, and you have the river and you go through this
Oh, it's so
nice forested
beautiful.
shaded area, and then you go over the granite rocks, and it's a really good short mix of these different elements, and it's a pretty quick, little hike. It's not very long, and yeah,
Mm,
it's a hidden gem. Cedar Grove is one of my favorite areas, just being down and you just look up on both sides and see the canyon and the drive
mm,
through the Forest Service. A lot of people don't realize that, you go through Grant Grove and Kings Canyon National Park, but then really that scenic drive is all through the
the
Forest
forest.
Service as you're approaching Cedar Grove, and they have Boyden Cavern and Grizzly Falls, and we have all these great features along the way, but it's the best drive.
And Hume Lake. Don't miss out. Hume Lake is
And
cool.
Hume Lake, oh, you have to go to Hume Lake and make that stop and get some ice cream and
It's beautiful.
yeah, and some fries.
And watch the ducks, because
It's a
they
good
all
treat.
have their butts up in the air when they're out, diving down, and you get up there and you're like, what are those things? Oh yeah. you know, and there's the big trees too, where you can actually crawl through a tree, there's all of that. There's the tunnel log. One thing Nancy and I haven't done is Mineral King.
Mhm.
So that opening up this
There you
year?
go.
And
That will open up it's planned to open this year. another, pretty high elevation area. And so I think the snow melts a little bit later there, but going in the summer, you can go pretty late in the summer and still it feels like spring up there. It's one of those, areas where it gets a late wildflower bloom in Mineral King, just because it takes a little bit longer for that snow to melt because it's a little bit cooler up at that elevation. But another hidden gem, the road, it's bumpy and it's not great you need a high clearance vehicle, recommended if you're driving up that way. But again, once you're up there, it's pretty magical. And it's one of it's one of those places where you have great access to wilderness trails. You get up there and you're able to access wilderness pretty quickly.
Oh, and marmots.
Yes,
And marmots.
They're so cute. They're just like little prairie dogs, little forest prairie dogs.
We like
Look
them.
out for your backpack and your snacks.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And speaking of that, is like if you have a bunch of food, you want to put them in the bear thingies, right? So that the bears don't go munching in the car.
Yeah, no leaving coolers out, no, even visible inside your car. There have been times when, bears will approach a vehicle and get into it, and they're able to. It's pretty easy for them to break into your car. So keeping everything, if you do need to have a cooler of food in your vehicle, putting that in your trunk, where it's not as visible and harder to smell. If you're going to be in your picnic area or campsite, using those bear boxes that are there, the brown boxes. If you're parking in an area like Crescent Meadow, there are bear boxes next to the parking lot, plenty of them, so you can put your things away if you're going to have a little longer of a hike. And not just food, sunscreen, toiletries, anything with a scent, we recommend putting away.
All those bear
Have a
necessities.
really good sense of smell. I mean, I think they can smell it from a long, long way, and they're like, "Ooh, copper tone."
I hear they're big fans of baby car seats because there's so many crumbs and things that get tucked into car seats. So if you have one of those in your car, maybe consider putting that in the trunk as well.
Oh, I never thought of that. I think the first time we got there, we stayed at a bed and breakfast in Three Rivers, and right there by the entrance. And the innkeeper lady said, "You need to take everything out. And I'm like, well, okay. She even made I had this French fry, fast food French fry that I had in the car since one fry as and now I have, I think another one and a Cheez-It. They don't change appearance for years. So you've got to wonder about what we're eating, and we're not big on fast food, but it's sometimes on the road, that's it, and this French fry had fallen down and I noticed nothing changed. And she made me take it out. She says, "I don't care, that your science experiment has to go." So my 3-year science experiment with that French fry never changed. But she said, "No, you know what? That will be the end of your experiment and your car. You'll want in. But yeah, that's the thing. I don't want to scare people, but also understand like this, you are in their home and there are all these tools to keep you safe and keep your food, taken care of too, because nobody wants someone to steal their lunch. So
yeah, we don't want our bears to become aggressive. Once they become food conditioned, it's so much easier to just get easy access to a cooler and know that you're going to be fed if you go into a certain area. So why try going and doing your natural hunting and foraging and so and they become aggressive over time. And then ultimately there have been times where we've had to kill a bear because they've become aggressive towards visitors, because visitors have just conditioned them with easy access to food. And so ultimately we really want to protect our wildlife and our visitors alike. We know they're cute and we know it's really tempting to take a great picture of them and bring them close, lure them in with a little snack, and you think that a small snack is not going to do that much damage, but think of all the other visitors who are doing the same thing, and it's just conditioning over time.
It's the hikes that we've been on and the bears we've seen, it's been early in the morning. We've seen them on Big Trees Trail, Crescent Meadow, even just on the road into the park on the main general highway, and in the picnic areas, but even been on foot. If you just sit still and just stay put and don't do anything. Don't freak them out. Just don't even start making loud sounds with your cameras, and don't try to get close. They just kind of sniff, look at you and go, all right, whatever, and move
Yeah.
on. That's
Mhm.
kind of been our
Mhm.
experience. We did come across a mom and babies, and they
Yeah, that was
bailed.
cool.
They bailed, and you do want to get, ooh, but she bailed and she took her cubs, and you don't go
Yeah.
running after them. That's a no. But they were getting the grubs in the trees, and we didn't know that until later in the visitor center. It's like we did things backwards again because we got all stuck in there. But they were scratching the grubs out of the dead trees. It was fall season, and man, that
Mm.
sound, you don't ever want to mess with them once you hear that sound, because you realize that's their claws in the bark
That's some
getting those
power
grubs.
behind that paw with the claws. Some real power.
Yeah, so very cool. Well, thank you so much for
Mm.
joining us. It's been a real pleasure having you back, and we can't wait for everyone to go enjoy National Park Week, and everyone that's for parks across the country, right? This celebration.
That's right.
Every
Mhm.
April it happens, so April 16th through 24th, but the park is open. Go play with the big
Yay.
trees. And yeah, I mean, I always say, who doesn't want to take a family photo? That should be your family portrait of everyone hugging a tree, So everyone, again, the website is nps.gov/SEKI for the National Park Service. And also they're on Facebook and all those great places. And also when you're planning your journey, go to discoverthesequoias.com. And again, we are here talking about Tulare County, the parks, the forests, all of that good stuff every first Thursday here on Big Blend Radio. And you can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.